Here.
Klein,
Here.
Parker,
Here.
Mossberg,
Here.
Logston.
Here. We have a quorum, so we'll continue. Next item, item number 3 is approval of minutes of regular meeting held October 12th, 2021.
Make a motion to approve the minutes from October 12th, 2021. Second.
Call the roll, please.
Parker,
Yes.
Klein,
Yes.
Kinsey,
Yes.
Mossberg,
Yes.
Logston.
Yes. Next item, number 4, report from staff. And item A under 4 is city council report.
I really don't have a whole lot to report tonight, unless Angelica has something. The financial reports were sent out for the previous months pretty quick after the last meeting, and then we got them this with this packet as well. So if anybody has any questions, hire Angelica. Happy to try to answer.
Any questions for the city council report? If not, we'll go on to the next item, and that would be Derek's manager's report.
October was a busy yet somewhat annoying month. The sales and everything was really great. I mean, I thought the way how busy we were was really great, but also the runway lights and everything was the annoying part. Our sales today was $26,382.30. Low lead was $9,480.94. And oil was $118.65 with hanger rent was, overnight hanger was $45 for a total of $36,026.89. So, like I said, there were some weekends that were $5,000, $6,000. I mean, it was crazy, but and of course, we thought the runway lights and taxi lights went out because maybe on the construction, but turns out that wasn't the case. So what had happened was, I thought it was maybe power surge, but they said it looked more like lightning. It fried the pappy regulator, and there's, since the lines are direct buried, there's 2 lines somewhere touching, so Williams Electric's going to be here tomorrow to kind of pinpoint where that might be to get at least get our runway lights and taxi lights working. I put NOTAMs out and extended them for the lights not working, but probably couldn't happen at a more inconvenient time with time change. It's getting darker earlier, so but the most expensive part's probably going to be the pappy regulator, since they showed me a picture of the bottom, all the connectors and stuff on the bottom, it's just like they were welded. So that's obviously probably a lightning strike. So
if a lightning strike, would be covered under insurance?
We can check. We'll have to call and check. Dale, I hadn't thought about that. I'll call and see.
Well, we just need to, tomorrow when they come, and I'm sure they'll be able to kind of maybe tell me a little bit more on that if they think it was really lightning. But I also will talk to them to see what we can do in the future to prevent that, if there's anything. Hopefully just tomorrow I'll get more answers. So I don't know if the pappy will be fixed anytime soon, but we should be able to get the runway lights and taxi lights at least going. Other than that, the construction's going fairly smooth. They had that little hiccup in the beginning and in the rain, but they got half of it poured last Thursday, and tomorrow they're going to start it. They're going to do the same thing I did last Thursday, start at 4:30 in the morning and get the other half poured. And then the one they did, for what they poured out there, it looks pretty good. And they did put tie downs. I wasn't for sure if they were gonna put tie downs. People asked me if they're putting tie downs. And I wasn't really for sure, but they did, so. I'm getting a quote from Northwest Electric for 220 receptacles put in places for that GPU, preferably one out here, just west of the windsock where a lot of those, well, a couple of the jets park that come here quite a bit. And then the 220 we have here is only 30 amp wires, not 50 amp, so they're gonna have to pull wire to make it. I thought it was, you know, I didn't realize that apparently that's pretty old wiring, so it's 30 amp and not 50 amp, which is standard now, so. So that'll have to be upgraded, and I didn't know if I talked to Williams Electric, if there's something they could do right out here by the new Apron expansion, if they could put some out there, would be kind of nice also. Just kind of see how much it costs, but the gas truck had some vacuum leaks again, so I purchased some more vacuum line hose to get some a little bit. There are some that you try to pull off of there and it would just crumble in your hand, so I replaced those, but then as I was driving, somebody asked me what was hanging underneath the truck, so I thought, and it was the exhaust, so that exhaust is kind of a two-way exhaust. I don't know if that's causing it to, it kind of makes sense that it was running a little crappy, because if that was off, and maybe something's not running right there. So I'm gonna have to deal with that too. We were so busy in some of those last month that we didn't have enough courtesy cars to accommodate everyone, so I lent my pickup, my personal pickup, for an overnight guy, and then for some pilots to go grab lunch. But sometimes there were just so many, it was like one car was gone, then when the green Buick was out for a couple of days, we just didn't have enough really to accommodate anybody.
Did you let them use the white pickup?
No, I wouldn't. I barely want to try that. I mean, we could.
What does it need, the white pickup? Because when we first bought that, that was an extra backup courtesy vehicle that we could allow people to drive.
Well, I don't really like to take it over 45. It's just the front end. Got some issues. The front tires are pretty old. We put two new tires last winter on the back end, but the front seats, all the padding is out. You're pretty much sitting on the springs like that. I mean, it's seen better days, but I mean, it's been like that since I started, so. I mean, they could, but it'd be like.
The majority of, or a lot of the airports you go to, they're old worn out vehicles.
Oh, I
Just barely run, and pilots are more than happy that they have anything.
Right.
They get spoiled at our airport because we have a couple of really nice vehicles.
Right. Yeah, it's just whatever that, there was a guy that came over for the rodeo. He flew down to watch his daughter. So he took it overnight. And at the same time, I think that was the time when the green Buick was at K&S, but his daughter didn't make the final, so he left in time for when the next plane came, they were able to take that car, so that one worked out, but I don't know. It doesn't bother me to lend my pickup out if they were to go grab something to eat, but it just seems like doing that white pickup is kind of, I don't know, it's very uncomfortable. Plus it's got a bunch of stuff in the back. Other than that, I don't have anything else.
Anybody help in the future, Derek, if we've got multiple events going on, kind of give you a heads up before the weekend gets here, because I know that weekend that happened. There's rodeo, a game, there's a lot of stuff happening, so probably get you scheduled before those weekends hit like that.
Right.
Make it
Yeah,
easier,
because when the rodeo and the football, but luckily when that Harding University came in their King Air, somebody from Northwestern came up here tonight, so. And Bob Baker, he loaned out his Tahoe or whatever it was one time for people to take too, so. I guess if I knew it in advance, I could probably ask him also. But, yeah.
Anybody have anything else for Derek?
Oh, we did hire another part-time guy, Blair Stevenson, so, he's been working, we've been getting him trained, so he'll be filling in, on weekends and, during the week whenever I need to take off, so.
Anything else? If not, we'll go on to the next item. Number 5, discussion and action to approve the fiscal year 2023 CIP.
And I'm going to call Toby Baker. I had called him on Friday, and he said he'd be available by phone, so I'm going to put him on speakerphone, so that way if y'all have any questions, he can assist us. Hey Toby, it's Angelica. I'm going to put you on speakerphone and set you over here by the board members. All right, can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay. Toby, we just started the action item to approve the CIP. I'm just going to let you talk a little bit about what we discussed last week.
Okay, so the current Apron project is funded with the fiscal year 20 grant and utilized our funds through 2020. And then the next thing when we first started working with you guys that was shown on the CIP at the time was the second phase of the terminal apron expansion. But between then and now, the Oklahoma Aeronautics Commission has actually programmed us for funding for a project to rehabilitate the parallel taxiway and install taxiway lights, and specifically the old runway. When we say parallel taxiway, referring to the former runway. And so anytime they come up with special funding that's outside of our normal non-prime entitlement, we typically rearrange our priorities to align with the funding that they have put in place for us. And so if you have a copy of the 5-year CIP, the cover sheet, you can see on there that the first thing that we would do, or actually something that's not shown on there, is the Aeronautics Commission has actually hired us to prepare a preliminary engineering report for that project, in which we'll go through, we'll determine the type of rehabilitation that needs to be done, whether that's crack seal and overlay or reconstruction, and then prepare a detailed cost estimate. That's something that is not shown on your CIP because it's not coming out of your funding, and that's actually ongoing right now. Then in fiscal year 23, back up a step, fiscal year 22, we're showing to roll over your funds. So you would simply bank your $150,000 of non-primary entitlement. You would bank those for use on the next project. And then in fiscal year 23, we would have a design-only grant, in which you would get a grant from FAA to pay for the design as we do it. Sometimes the projects are designed up front, and the city fronts the cost for that design and then is reimbursed once the construction grant is received. But in this case, you would get a grant to actually fund the design up front. And then in 2024, we actually are showing the construction for the rehab of the taxiway and the installation of taxiway lights. Now, one thing that I want to point out on that is the figures that we're using for the estimated costs. Those are from the Aeronautics Commission's 5-year, they changed the name, they called theirs an ACP, Airport Construction Program. So they're showing a total construction cost of $2 million for that project. And that's not something that, as part of the preliminary engineering report, we will put together a very detailed cost estimate, but that is not something that we have done yet, and so that number is just kind of their initial budget figure. But you can see on there that the breakdown of that $2 million is in the entitlement column, which is your MPE funds. We would essentially be using 3 years of your MPE, $450,000. Then in the additional AIP column, those funds, those will be federal dollars, but they will either be in the form of FAA discretionary or FAA state apportionment. And on the OAC's ACP, they break that down a little bit further. They're showing they're showing that breakdown, but it's not necessarily set in stone on how they will fund that, because they are actually showing on their breakdown using less MPE than what you would have available, and that's, the FAA never does that. They're always going to exhaust your MPE, your entitlements, before they add any additional funding. So we kind of backed into that 1.35 million number, looking at the total project cost, less the entitlements that you had shown, then less your match. Now, on what the FAA referred to as big rock projects, these $1, $2, $3 million projects, recognizing that the 10% city match to that FAA grant is not at all a small number, the OAC will often come alongside you and pick up half of your FAA match. So on the far right, the match column is your local city match, and the other column, that is actually OAC funds. So to kind of recap that, the breakdown of the $2 million will be $450,000 of your entitlements, 1.35 of FAA discretionary and or FAA state apportionment. That ratio really doesn't matter at this point. Then the OAC will have 100,000, and then the city would have 100,000, based on that initial $2 million cost estimate that the OAC is using. So after that project, your entitlement balance would be zero, because anytime you have a discretionary project, if there's money left in the grant, they're always going to assume that those monies are discretionary and recover them, and your entitlement balance is zero. So beginning in fiscal year 25, we'd only have $150,000, and 26 we have $300,000, and that's what's shown on there. The last project that we are showing is phase 2 of the expansion of the Apron, and we simply put that back on there because that was the next project that you guys had shown, last year when we first started working with you. That said, it's entirely possible or even probable that between now and 2027, your priorities may change. And that's 100% okay and expected, and there would be no issue if between now and then, after we complete the parallel taxiway project, if you wanted to reorder your priorities, add a new project to the list, push that Apron expansion further down, if you wanted to, you certainly could. So the only thing that we're, quote, committed to is the parallel taxiway project, and that's not so much that we're committed as we certainly want to take advantage of that additional AIP funding that the OAC is getting for us. So that's kind of why we reorganized it to reflect their schedule for that additional funding. So with all that said, are there any questions or clarifications needed on any of that?
In your assessment for that parallel taxiway-like project, if you come up with a number that's over $2 million, does the OAC look at funding that? Do they stay at $2 million and we come up with the balance, or how does that work?
So typically, as long as the OAC and the FAA are in agreement with the basis for our estimate. So, for example, and I'm just pulling things out completely here, but let's say we told them that, we don't want to rehabilitate it, we don't want to overlay it, we are going to completely reconstruct it from the ground up, and we go to them with a $3 million estimate. At that point, they may say, no, that's not the scope that we're going for, and we would never get to that point without having a conversation with them. But if we were wildly off on what we were proposing as far as the scope of the project, then they may say, no, we are not going to find additional funds for the project. If you want to do that, you guys are on the hook for the difference. If they are in agreement with what we are proposing in the report as far as the construction methods and the rehabilitation methods, and let's say our estimate comes back at 2.4 million, that's why they have us do the preliminary report so early in the game, is because it allows them the time to find additional funds. So that can come in a number of different ways. Most frequently, if we're just short $100,000 or $200,000, they will probably look for another airport's expiring entitlement funds, and they will transfer those to you. That's usually the way they make up small shortfalls. It is still possible that they can adjust the discretionary or the state apportionment number. The only thing to keep in mind as far as would the city share go up is the OAC will not allow your share to be less than 5%. And so if the total goes up, then your share is going to go up on a prorated basis. It would not stay flat at that $100,000. But unless we are just asking to do something that is a departure from their goal for the scope of the project, I would anticipate that the funding ratios would stay the same, so that ultimately we would have a 5% share of that total construction project.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Anybody else have any questions? I think we're good. Toby, thanks for joining us.
He's gonna stay on just a little bit longer,
Okay.
and when we talk about the electrical issues, he's gonna have some conversation for us there too.
I make a motion that we approve the CIP as presented.
Call the roll, please.
Kinsey,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Mossberg,
Yes.
Logston,
Yes.
Klein.
Yes.
Okay. We'll go on to the next item. Number 6, discussion and action on runway taxi light and taxi light repair.
Toby, do you wanna give us your thoughts, first, and then Derek can follow up with anything that he has to add?
Sure, yeah, I certainly can, but I know Derek has been very plugged in it and been talking directly to Williams Electric too. So Derek, if there's anything that, if I've got any of my details wrong, please step in and correct me, because I know you're well into it. So when Derek originally reached out to, let me back up a step. So Williams Electric is the electrical subcontractor for Contech, who is our paving contractor on the current Apron project. The new pavement will cover up some of the existing taxiway lights, and that was known, and that was in the plans. And so part of the plan is to reroute the existing taxiway circuit underneath the new pavement. Now, the way they're going to do that is they're going to actually bore it under at the end of the project. So what we did at the very beginning of the job was to remove those taxiway lights that were coming out, but leave the circuit continuous that would ultimately be underneath the new pavement and would eventually be abandoned. But in doing that, at the pre-construction meeting, Williams Electric was out there digging, and they showed us that the existing circuit was very shallow, and so we cautioned the contractor, hey, the way our lighting is currently set up, the runway lights and the taxiway lights are all on one continuous loop, and so if we damage that circuit, we will lose everything. So we caution them when you're mixing, when you're doing stabilization, you need to be sure we don't get too deep so we don't get into that circuit, because it arguably was not buried in the depth that it should have been. So when Derek called Williams to say, hey, our runway lights are out, I think everybody's first thought, or at least mine was, the contractor hit it, because it was right about the time they had been doing the soil stabilization. So Williams prepared to go up there, and I talked to them ahead of time, and I said, well, let's just jump her across that area and see if it fixes it. And so they ran a temporary cable on top of the ground, connecting to that circuit, basically north to south of the project area, so that if the circuit had been damaged by the construction activities, it would have been bridged across and everything should have come back on. So after they did that, it did not come back on. At that point, when Chuck, who's the foreman for Williams, went to the electrical vault, they went inside could smell something burning, and there was actually smoke coming from the PAPI regulator. So you have a regulator that controls the PAPI circuit, and you have a separate regulator that controls the separate runway and taxiway circuits, and that also includes the ovals. The ovals are on that same circuit. So in part of their testing and troubleshooting, trying to figure out what was going on, they completely turned the power off to the PAPI regulator that was smoking. They turned all the power off first. But then they came back and one by one, they turned the runway circuit back on. And when they energized the runway circuit, the PAPI regulator began to smoke again, even though it was not energized. And Williams and I had talked about that round and round, and the only possible way for that to happen is the runway circuit and the PAPI circuit have to have shorted together somewhere out there, and the current from the runway circuit is making it into the PAPI circuit and back to the PAPI regulator. And so I don't know, from a weather standpoint, I don't know, Derek, if you guys had, the potential for a lightning strike, but that it would seem a lot like a lightning strike for something like that to happen and have to happen suddenly. It would also make sense, a short would also explain why, I believe for a period of time, part of the runway lights were on, half were on, or half were not. The way that constant current regulator works is it continues to increase the voltage in the circuit to maintain a constant level of current. And so if there is a short somewhere down the line, as it increases that level of voltage, the lights closer to that regulator may continue to burn, but as that power goes to ground at the short and beyond, there may not be enough power to power the rest of those lights. So it theoretically explains why you would see some lights on and the other lights off. A short would also explain that. Now that said, Derek, this is where you may have some more current information, but my understanding is that Williams is supposed to be up there tomorrow to begin further troubleshooting it. And I visited with them last week, and I know they have a big project that they are on. And I said, this is outside the scope of the construction project, obviously. I think we proved that the contractor didn't cause this, but at the same time, it needs to be fixed and fixed as quickly as possible. So if Williams, they originally came up because we thought the problem was the construction project, and it was not. If they are unable to get to it in a timely manner, then the city needs to start looking to some other airfield electricians to see if they can get there more quickly. And so Scott Morion of Williams and I had that conversation last week, and that's where I think he worked out that they would be able to get up there tomorrow. So Derek, does that jive with the latest information that you have from Williams?
Yes. Yeah, I'm glad you explained it because you explained it better than what I probably would have. But I explained to Williams Electric that I'd rather them come up and do it also because if you get too many electricians coming to do certain different jobs, and I think that kind of causes confusion. So if we just keep one electrician business up here, trying kind of keeping their tabs on everything, and work out a lot better.
So we put the odals in, and they're up on the rods. We just made lightning rods to track the lightning to strike the odals, which is connected to the runway lights. So does that need to be?
I understand the premise of what you're saying. However, each one of those odals units is grounded. They have a dedicated lightning ground, and then there is also a counterpoise system. There's a bare copper wire that runs in the trench 8 inches deep, where our power cables are 24 inches deep to catch any lightning strikes. So I can see what you're saying, but there is lightning protection on those as well as there should be on your runway lights as well. I can't verify that because we didn't do those, but I do know that approach lights are all on masts like that, and some of them even taller. In fact, at Guthrie we have one that's on a 70-foot tower, and so that's not necessarily anything unique or out of the ordinary as far as a lightning attractant.
And I will say, noticed the pappies on 3-6 were out. It wasn't but a day or so before that we had a power surge. It surged like 3 times, and then the power just went out here at the airport. Well, not just the airport, but surrounding areas and businesses also.
Yeah.
So that was about the time the pappies went out, but it was a couple weeks after that half the one side of the runway lights were on and the taxi lights and others were off. So, there might have been a storm or lightning struck also, but I just know that there was a power surge.
We did have it, yeah.
And maybe from a big picture standpoint, it's worth mentioning, it is not normal. It's not something we would normally design to have the runway circuit and the taxiway circuit all in one loop together on an airport your size. Sometimes in small airports, 3,000-foot runways and only partial parallel taxiways, we might do that, but that's a little bit abnormal for an airport like yours. And in fact, at the time when we did the ovals, we recognized that was the case, and we looked to see if we could separate the circuits at that time, because we knew we were going to have to put in a bigger regulator for the runway circuit because of the ovals. And so we thought, okay, could we move the taxiway circuit onto its own dedicated regulator? And we actually approached the OAC. Remember, that project was funded by the OAC, and there would have been quite a bit of expense because we would have had to have run a new, what we call home run circuit from the taxiway back to the vault to get that separated. And they were not willing to put that in the ovals project because you have this upcoming taxiway project. And so Director Artie's answer at the time was, well, let's just be sure we clean that up when we do the parallel taxiway project. We'll have an airfield electrician out there working on the taxi. We're putting in taxiway lights, so that'll be an opportune time to get those circuits separated. So that definitely is something in the works and in the plan, but obviously we have to address the current issue well before 2024. And now how far we want to take that, I think that's up to you guys. We could potentially try to separate those circuits now, but no matter what we do, we're going to have to find and fix where the circuit is shorted on both the runway taxiway circuit and the paths.
And the main reason that we're bringing it to the commission tonight is because Williams has already stated that will be over $5,000. They don't have, because they're not really sure what that looks like and what is causing the issue, they can't give us an estimate, but we do know that's going to be over Derek's spending limit. And so we just need some direction on how we would like to proceed to get that fixed.
Yeah, well, we've got to get it fixed.
Correct.
And if it was a lightning strike, we talked about insurance earlier. We don't, if it is not an insurance issue or can cover it, we still have to get it fixed. We have to fund it however we can.
So I guess my question to the board, to the commission would be, are you guys okay with Derek using his discretion on how we move forward with that? Does it need to come back before, do we need to have a special meeting when we have a better idea of
So
what that
if we-
cost is?
So your spending limit is higher.
Mine is 25,000, yes.
Is that what are they thinking greater than 5 but less than 25? Or are they, we've got to do it either way, but as far as procedure is concerned,
We don't really know.
I don't really see it costing too much on getting the runway lights and taxi lights working. It's getting the pappies back. The pappy regulators, they said, is what's going to cost the most.
Derek, do you remember, and I just don't have the bid documents in front of me, but when we did the ovals, we added a larger regulator. Did we keep the previous runway regulator in the electrical vault? Did we leave it in there, or was it?
Yes. Yeah. It's still in there. They didn't remove anything out of there.
Okay, so that very potentially could be, and I have not discussed the condition of the traffic regulator, but if it is smoking, we're obviously going to be spending some dollars to get it back operational. But it is very probable that we could use the former runway regulator to power the PAPIs once we get the circuit fixed. So that may be something to keep in mind before we start spending any money on the PAPI regulator. Is I think we could use that spare one that's in there. That may just be something to discuss with Williams.
But as I understand it, you're addressing this problem with the future taxiway light project.
We will have the runway and ovals on a dedicated circuit, and the entire taxiway system on a dedicated circuit, so that if we were to experience a short anywhere besides the runway circuit in the future, we would not lose the runway circuit.
I understand.
So
let me add this to your thought process, is that I believe that for some time out here, we've had an abnormally short life of computer motherboards and on the weather system out here, that these things we don't get the light out of them that we do, and they talk to them about the electrical strikes and stuff, and something weird's going on, and I think we have power surges that shorten these lives out here, and so I would encourage you to consider at some point figuring out some way, if it's feasible, to put like a surge protector in these circuits to protect this stuff. Whether it's a lightning strike or from the power supplier, because it seems like every other year, if not every year, we're having to replace something out here that's either claimed by a lightning strike, they say, or a power surge.
okay, that's good to know.
And so I think we need to address that for the long term, because it's just unrealistic what we're having to deal with all the time out here. I would say that we would, I'm not making a motion at this point, but I think we should allow them to go up to their $25,000 limit, checking the insurance, and if they need more than that, then we could have a special meeting to approve it. Be my suggestion. If everybody agree with that, I'll make a motion.
Gotta have them fixed.
Yeah,
It's not,
we can, you know,
I make a motion that we have Derek and the city manager proceed with Williams to find a solution on this project up to their $25,000 spending limit, and if it exceeds that, then we'll call a special meeting or have it at our next meeting to approve the additional expenditure.
second.
we have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Kinsey,
Yes.
Mossberg,
Yes.
Logston,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Klein.
Yes.
Need Toby for anything else?
No, don't need Toby. Thank you for
Thank you, Toby.
sticking in here with us. Okay, we'll go on to the next item, number 7, remarks and inquiries by airport commission members.
Yeah, I had a couple. One of them is, what's the status on our being able to refuel Air Force, being able to accept their credit cards or whatever it is?
We're gonna have to start that form over, I had to fill it out. And it's, I think it's been sitting for a while that we were waiting on thinking,
Is that with ASAP?
no, the Air Force, the government card,
Oh.
to be able to.
Yes, I think that fell off my plate, Paul, so I apologize. Derek and I'll get that taken care of and get that moved forward. I'm very sorry.
All right, so then the second thing I had, I would suggest that we have on the agenda for the next meeting, establishing a committee to look ahead into the future, what our potential needs of the airport would be for addressing needs or potential additional income, revenue sources for the airport.
Okay. We will put those on. Any other discussion from commission members? If not, we'll go on to the next item, number 8, remarks and inquiries by citizens. We have have any citizens that have anything? And we do not, so the next item is item 9, adjourned.